Well, it's going to keep happening. Microsoft is making games for everybody now, and I think that's a well understood point at this point. But it is still weird to see Gears of War announced for the PlayStation. Gears of War Reloaded, that is a remaster of the original Gears of War. It is coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC this August. Let's go ahead and go over here. Eddie McCoo over at GameSpot writes, a new remaster of the original Gears is on the way as Microsoft has announced Gears of War Reloaded for Xbox Series X/S, PS5, and Steam. It's coming to Game Pass on day one for Ultimate subscribers. This is just the latest remaster from Microsoft following the successful debut of Oblivion Remastered in April. Although, a little bit of a different remaster here. Oblivion Remastered had completely reworked visuals. Reloaded for Gears of War, much more of an upgrade. Might explain the $40 price tag. But the game is going to have the full suite of features. In fact, you know what? Let's go down here, go to the performance area. Here is a rundown of what to expect in terms of performance improvements for Gears of War Reloaded as written by Microsoft. It will feature a 4K resolution, 60 frames per second in campaign, 120 frames per second in multiplayer, high dynamic range support, Dolby Vision and Dolby 7.1.4 Atmos support, 7.1.4 3D spatial audio, variable refresh rate, 4K assets and remastered textures, enhanced post-processing visual effects, improved shadows and reflections, super resolution with improved anti-aliasing, zero loading screens during campaign. I think, going through all of those numbers there is important because Gears of War already runs really good on Xbox Series X and S thanks to backward compatibility. Honestly, kind of felt like it didn't need much of a remaster, but there's still a lot of new stuff here. The game is going to be looking and sounding better than it ever has. Microsoft, in its statement, said, "From faster frame rates to deeper visual fidelity, every detail has been tuned to bring the original game into the present with clarity, smoothness, and immersion that matches the power of today's hardware," Microsoft said. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. It's really about selling the game again. Now, not selling it to everybody. If you already, let's see here. The Reloaded package includes everything from Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which launched in 2015 and was itself a remaster of the 2006 original Gears of War game. This includes the base game with all post-launch expansions covering multiplayer maps and modes, characters, and cosmetics. I believe if you already own the Ultimate Edition, if you already bought that game back in 2015 or anytime since then, you will get this update for free. It says that here somewhere, but yes, yeah, right here. The game supports cross-play and cross-progression on all platforms. Anyone who already owns the digital version of Gears of War Ultimate Edition will get Reloaded for free. I don't know what that means for the physical version, but all that stuff is just, yeah, that's great and awesome. Gears of War fans are probably happy just to see it coming back again, or for Microsoft to acknowledge, hey, Gears of War is still happening. Last I heard, Gears of War is the thing that the Coalition is still working hard on. The next Gears of War game that should be coming out next year, I believe. I think it's next year. I've lost my timeline there a little bit. I'm like trying to remember off the top of my dome. I'm sorry. I should have double checked that before I got started with this video. But what I remember was I think that game was supposed to maybe pop off this year and might now slip to next year. I think that's right. That they never talked about that publicly. These were their internal conversations. So that stuff is always moving. I know people hate that. Oh, things could change. Well, that's how things work. Things change all the time. Point is, they're working on a new Gears of War game. So if you're excited about Gears of War, plenty of reasons and plenty of things to look forward to. Let's get to the real thing here, though. Gears of War is now going to be on PlayStation. That is a very strange thing to see. And at this point, it really just hammers home what's really happening here. Microsoft is expanding their strategy to encompass all platforms. I mean, everything is in Xbox, really does just kind of say it. It almost feels silly at this point to reiterate, and yet it does feel necessary in this moment that, hey, Gears of War is one of those, hey, if you were going to have a red line as Microsoft that we do not cross with one of these major brands that we own, that we could put on a PlayStation, what would be on the other side, the do not touch side of that red line? Well, it'd be Halo, and it would probably be Gears of War. I think at one point you could even argue it might have been Forza. Well, Forza Motorsport 5, or excuse me, Forza Horizon 5, I think it is, has already been on PlayStation, did very well. And at a certain point, you kind of just can't deny that it's working and making money. And you know, all they care about is money. I mean, all they care about is really making this all make sense. They have a lot of money invested in video games and trying to make that work in such a way that it's like, hey, we're going to keep all of our exclusives on Xbox, to sell Xbox hardware, and that'll be a platform on which we make all our money because we have so much success from our exclusives. That's done. They're not doing that anymore. And really, everyone's a little bit done with that, except for maybe Nintendo. PlayStation is a little bit done with that. Obviously, all their stuff going to PC for a while now. We've seen them make multiple gestures to enabling some of their other games to go to Switch. That happened most recently with not Patapon, but or what was it? Yeah, it was Patapon, right? Patapon coming to the Switch. You know, Sony still owns that. And Freedom Wars or Freedom Planet, whichever one that is. I'm sorry, I always mix those two up. So I'm going to be kind of going off the dome here with this as well. But Sony's got multiple things where there's smaller games, and they have worked with like third-party publishers to bring those games to Switch. And that is just them beginning to test the waters with that stuff. And their whole goal there is, we have this stuff, let's make money. And Sony is working with, it seems like they're working with third-party publishers on those things because that's a cheap way of doing that. Just let someone else do the work of publishing these games on Switch. So, you know, it's a big gap between Patapon and Gears of War. Clearly, Microsoft is much further down the path of expanding the platforms for which it supports. But that is where we're at with this business. The console business is no longer growing. Talked about that in the last video. It's kind of how we're gonna keep talking about this for a while. The console business is no longer growing. You kind of just can't be like, okay, well, if we have success now and we get people very excited about the Xbox with more exclusives, they will show up in droves later on because it'll be so, you can't ignore it. It's so big. It's like, no, they know who's going to buy an Xbox. It's the same people who have been buying an Xbox. They know who's going to be buying consoles, the same people who have been buying consoles. That space is not growing nearly fast enough to justify making the kinds of maneuvers that would keep this game exclusive. So they need to find out other ways to making video games work for them, and that means putting games out everywhere. So this is a very blatant reminder, just a bold statement of everything is on the table. And honestly, I think this was an early conversation that they had. Gears of War was something I heard about a long time ago. Gears of War could come to PlayStation. And here we are, not all that far off from the timeline we were talking about when we originally said this. So there you go. That's how it goes sometimes. I guess the question now is Halo. Does Halo go to PlayStation? I think at this point, yes, of course. Of course it does. Everything does. The console business is going to look very different in 5 to 10 years. And that's before we even talk about, I keep thinking about making a video about that Apple Epic ruling that enables Epic to now, or anyone, to send you to a web to make a purchase so you don't have to give that 30% cut to Apple for in-game purchases. That could come to consoles. And if it does, why wouldn't Microsoft put their things on a PlayStation? And then when you go to buy an in-game app, or an in-game purchase in Call of Duty, send you to a web store and get all of the money instead of giving 30% to PlayStation. And at that point, it doesn't make any sense to keep things exclusive to your own console because now you're leaving all of the money. You don't even have to split it with PlayStation. So you'd be stupid not to make those moves. That's happening fast. These changes are happening fast. We're going to have to see how these companies try to execute on it. In the meantime, Gears of War Reloaded out in August for Xbox, PlayStation, PC for $40. We'll check it out when it comes out. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe. If you liked the video, thumbs up. If you didn't like it, there's a thumbs down button there. I'll be better. In the meantime, you can also support me at patreon.com/GameMess. Been getting a lot of supporters recently. I really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much. Gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.